What's up, guys? We are back and we're gonna get straight into work doing the one job I really don't want to do, which is dropping this subframe again. So let's get into it before I change my mind. Sorry for doing so much of that on time lapse, but I know you guys have seen me drop the subframe out of this thing before, so I didn't want to bore you with too much talking. That being said, I will show you what I was working on. So we got the brakes disconnected here. You'll notice I kept the lines hooked up, just pulled the caliper off so I don't need to bleed the brakes once this goes back together. And then I just pulled the shock off the spindle. So pretty much everything's disconnected from the subframe at this point other than the e-brake cables and the drive shaft. So I'm gonna get those out and then really I should be able to get the subframe out. So my biggest fear with getting the subframe out was that stud that I had stripped, that I wouldn't be able to get the bolt off. I thought it would just be spinning there because when you go to tighten it, it does just spin in place. It doesn't get any tighter. But thankfully, when I went to loosen it, it actually came off. It put up a fight the whole way and it is totally ruined, but it's off, which means the subframe is going to come out today. And I'm so happy about that. But take a look at the nut. Those threads are demolished. I'm really surprised that this thing came off looking like that. Well, all that's left to do now is loosen the other 3 bolts and lower this thing down carefully. Great news. I thought I was gonna have to drop the whole subframe. Obviously that's what I was preparing for. I was loosening the bolts on each side and I loosened these rear ones enough, or rather I took this one off and then loosened this one enough to get this brace off. And with this brace off, I have full access to the threads. Now while we're looking at this, you can tell just how mangled these things are. But because I can get full access to them, I don't think I need to drop the entire subframe, which will save me so much time. If I can just clean these threads up as they are without the subframe coming out, huge time saver, so much less work. So I'm gonna try and clean these threads up just like it is. Another cool discovery, the die, in case anybody's wondering, it's M14 by 1.5. This thing's huge. It won't fit in any of the tap-in die handles that I have, but I got lucky here and it is a 36 mil and I have a 36 mil socket. So it fits right in there. And now I can clean these threads up with no tool. And just like that, the threads are cleaned up. I'm so happy I didn't have to drop the subframe. It saves so much time and so much work. Look at how nice these threads turned out. They are like new. Beautiful. Now I just have to make a quick trip to the hardware store to get a nice new bolt, get this thing buttoned back up, and we are good to go.
An eternity later.
What's up? It's been about 2 weeks since that last clip. I'm a little sick, so if my voice sounds weird, that's why. So in the last clip, I got the threads fixed on that one that was messed up. And then I thought, cool, all I have to do is tighten the other bolts because I had loosened them in preparation to drop the subframe. So I was tightening them back up. And what do you know? One of them stripped. One that had no issues in the past just decided to totally strip out. So I think it's a problem with the factory subframe bolts. But when I was filming this clip, or the last clip, I mean, I just gave up because it literally took like 2 hours of making no progress at all because this bolt was stripped. Let me show you what I was working with. So it's this front one. You can see it's completely ruined now. But the nut sits inside this like subframe connector here. So you have no access to it. It's deep in there. So I was just fighting with it for a long time, and I just now got it off. So I'm going to attempt to run the die on that guy, see if I can get those threads cleaned up, and then I'm going to end up replacing the bolts on all four corners, or the nuts rather. I got some new grade 8 hardware, and I'm going to run a washer in between them. I think one of the issues here is because the Part Shop Max bushings raise the subframe up, I think you kind of run out of threads at the very top. So I think that may be causing the issue. So you can see here, I've already got the new nut and then the little washer there. So hopefully that fixes the problem. All right, so I just pulled one of the nuts off a different corner of the subframe, one that was good. And it came off okay. It was putting up a little bit of a fight. But anyways, when I pulled it off and took a good look at the actual stud, you can see that the nut had tried to go too high. It had tried to go above where the thread stopped. And that's what's messing it up. And that's kind of what caused this issue to begin with. Like I had said earlier, it's because the subframe bushings raise the subframe up tighter to the chassis. So you actually end up running out of threads, not by much, just a tiny bit. And I think if you over tighten it, like I had done on one of the corners, you're gonna push that nut past where the threads stop, and you're gonna end up with the nut kind of coming off center or just messing up the threads. So if you are running these bushings, or you plan on putting these bushings in, or any kind of aftermarket bushings that raise the subframe up, I would suggest running a washer. That's what I'm gonna do now, is add a washer in there, and it should totally fix the problem. So just a little bit of insight there if you plan on doing this mod. The subframe is bolted back in the car. The washers did the trick, tightened up just right. You can tell it felt good. It's not like the nuts were going past it like they were before. When I first put these bushings in, you can kind of feel on that one, especially the one that got messed up, just didn't feel right. So now it feels good. I cleaned up the threads on all four corners, obviously replaced the nuts and added that washer, and I think we're dialed. Now I just have to put the brakes and the coils back on that I had removed a while ago in preparation to drop the subframe. Again, I'm so happy I don't have to do that. And we'll get this thing back on the ground. The car is all back together, off jack stands. If you have a car sitting around on jack stands and it's been on there for a couple weeks or a couple months or a couple years, you know the feeling when you get it back on the ground on all four wheels back together. Definitely feels good, even if it was just a few weeks. There's still a lot I have to do. I want to do, I should say. I had a mod in store for this thing that I wanted to do while the rear end was taken apart, but just didn't get around to it. So stay tuned, that'll be in another video. I also still have the oil leaks to fix. I got the parts for them, I just have to put in the time, so no big deal there. But super exciting, this thing has plates. It is legal to drive on the streets, and I am so excited. So even though it does have a tiny bit of an oil leak and a few other things here and there, I'm at least gonna drive it around locally and just enjoy the fact that I can do so legally. I don't remember if I showed this in another video or not, but I do remember talking about thinking the dipstick was one of the issues with the oil leak. I just wanted to show you why I thought that. So the dipstick has this little rubber seal here. Let's see if I can get that to focus on it. And you can see half of it is pretty much gone. So that's how it's supposed to look, and that's how it looks on that side. So definitely not sealing well. Did get a brand new OEM one. You can actually see this one looks slightly different, but the seal is a whole lot bigger. I tossed that in, and maybe it'll fix the issue, maybe it won't. Either way, it definitely is not gonna hurt. I do think the major source of the leak was the valve cover after looking at it. And I do have the parts to fix that. Like I said, I just don't have the time to do it right now, but we'll get into that soon. I just got back home from a little drive around town, and man, does it feel good to be able to just cruise this thing down the streets and know that it's legal, know that it runs pretty good, had no issues. Just got back home, and there's no signs of oil leaking or anything. The dipstick did seem to fix if there was a leak there, because there's no more oil in that area. Overall, I think we're pretty good. There was a weird rattle I noticed in the passenger rear of the car. Not sure what that is, so I'll have to look into that at some point. And then the car the temp gauge is like right in the middle, right where it should be, but the fans never kick on. And when I got home and popped the hood, the car seems a little hot for my liking. It's not like it was overheating. I would just like the fans to have kicked on at some point, and they didn't. So I don't know if the factory thermostatic switch is just set really high, or maybe there's something wrong. I know the fans worked because at the track I had hardwired them on. So maybe in the future I'll just wire them to a switch or something. That way I can control when they turn on. But like I said, other than that, the car is sorted, at least I think. I am still gonna replace the valve cover gasket. And like I said, I've got a lot more in store for this thing. So get excited. I am gonna end this one off here. I know I didn't get a whole lot done, but it definitely feels like it, being able to drive this thing on the street and having the subframe finally fixed. That was such a daunting thing for the last couple weeks. So I'm glad it's behind me. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If at any point I didn't make any sense in this video, it's because I've got a little head cold. My apologies. Either way though, thanks again for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're not already. I'll catch you in the next one.